Welcome to 10 Forgotten Christmas Candies from the 1970s that have disappeared. Ever wonder what sweet treats made holiday tables sparkle back when disco ruled the airwaves and families gathered around glowing trees? These weren't just candies, they were memories. Flavors seniors still recall with a grin tied to stockings, laughter, and the pride of homemade traditions. Stick with me, because each candy is a blast from the past that'll have you saying, "Man, those were the days." And hey, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and drop a comment to keep these stories alive. Number 1. Coconut bonbons. Back in the 1970s, Christmas tables weren't complete without coconut bonbons. Little snowball-like candies that made kids' eyes light up and seniors smile with pride. These bite-sized treats were rolled in shredded coconut, sometimes dipped in chocolate, and always carried that festive sparkle. Folks remember how the kitchen smelled sweet and rich, and how making them felt like a family ritual, with laughter echoing while trays filled up. The first bite was chewy and creamy, the coconut crunch blending with the soft center, a taste tied to stockings stuffed with homemade goodies, and the joy of sharing something simple yet special. Seniors often say, "Man, those bonbons were the real deal," because they weren't just candy. They were memories of togetherness, of holidays, when every sweet bite carried love and legacy. Number 2. Chocolate fudge. Chocolate fudge in the 1970s was a kind of holiday treat that made folks say, "Now that's the good stuff." Seniors remember how pans of glossy, rich fudge cooled on the counter, cut into squares that disappeared faster than you could wrap them. It wasn't just candy, it was tradition, a sweet symbol of Christmas gatherings where cousins swapped stories and grandparents smiled at the joy in every bite. The texture was smooth and creamy, melting on the tongue with that deep cocoa punch that felt like pure indulgence. Families often joked it was gone before the tree lights dimmed, because fudge had a way of vanishing the moment it was served. This wasn't just about sugar, it was about memory, about the pride of homemade sweets that carried love, laughter, and the magic of the season. Number 3. Seafoam candy was one of those holiday marvels that felt almost magical in the 1970s. Seniors recall how this airy, golden confection was whipped up from sugar and corn syrup, then cooled into brittle chunks that looked like frosted glass. It wasn't just about the taste. It was about the spectacle of watching hot syrup transform into a bubbly, honeycomb-like texture that kids thought was straight out of a science experiment. Families often made it in big batches, breaking it apart with a hammer or rolling pin, then dipping pieces in chocolate for extra indulgence. The crunch was light, the sweetness sharp, and the memory tied to Christmas kitchens where creativity turned simple ingredients into something extraordinary. Folks still say that seafoam was wild because it carried the excitement of homemade candy that felt like a holiday showpiece, a treat that disappeared from tables but never from memory. Number 4. Pralines. Pralines carried a rich Southern heritage into 1970s Christmas kitchens, becoming a holiday staple that blended history with sweetness. Seniors recall how these candies, born from French settlers in Louisiana, turned simple sugar, cream, and pecans into a melt-in-your-mouth treasure. Making pralines wasn't just cooking, it was storytelling, a recipe passed down through generations, whispered with pride as families stirred the bubbling pot. The texture was grainy yet creamy, the pecans given a nutty crunch that made every bite feel like a celebration. Folks often said, that's the good old Southern magic, because pralines weren't just candy. They were a symbol of tradition, of holidays where heritage and flavor met at the table. The memory of pralines lingers as a reminder of how recipes carried culture, love, and legacy into every Christmas gathering. Number 5. Molasses Taffy. Molasses Taffy was one of those old-fashioned Christmas candies that carried the spirit of hard work and fun straight into the 1970s. Seniors recall how families would boil molasses and sugar until it reached that sticky stage, then gather around to pull the taffy by hand, stretching, twisting, and laughing as the glossy strands cooled. It wasn't just candy, it was an event, a holiday ritual where kids got their hands messy and elders passed down the know-how. The flavor was bold and deep, that unmistakable molasses bite balanced with sweetness, a taste tied to stockings, church socials, and the pride of homemade treats. Folks often said that taffy was tough but worth it because it carried the memory of togetherness, of kitchens alive with chatter, and of candy that demanded effort but was rewarded with tradition. Number 6. Caramels. Caramels were the golden centerpiece of Christmas candy trays in the 1970s, a treat that blended simplicity with indulgence. Seniors recall how sugar, butter, and cream were simmered slowly until the mixture turned into a glossy, amber-colored delight, then poured into pans and cut into chewy squares. Making caramels was a test of patience, stirring constantly, watching the thermometer, and waiting for that perfect, soft, firm texture. Families often wrapped each piece in wax paper, twisting the ends like little gifts, and kids loved sneaking them from bowls before guests arrived. The flavor was buttery and rich, a melt-in-your-mouth sweetness that felt like pure holiday luxury. Folks still say those caramels were worth the wait, because they carried the memory of kitchens filled with warmth, of candy that demanded care, and of a tradition that made Christmas feel complete. Number 7. Butterscotch Drops. Butterscotch Drops were the kind of old-school candy that gave Christmas in the 1970s its cozy charm. Seniors remember how these golden little discs were cooked from brown sugar and butter, simmered until the kitchen filled with that unmistakable caramel-like aroma. Once cooled, they hardened into shiny drops that looked like tiny jewels on holiday trays. The recipe itself had roots stretching back to the 19th century, but in the 70s, it was a go-to treat for families who wanted something simple yet rich. Kids loved sneaking them from candy dishes, while elders smiled at the buttery sweetness that felt like pure comfort. Folks often said those drops hit the spot because they weren't just candy. They were a memory of stockings stuffed with homemade treasures, of grandparents passing down recipes, and of a flavor that carried warmth and tradition through every holiday season. Number 8. Toffee was the crunchy showstopper of Christmas candy trays in the 1970s, a treat that blended old-world tradition with holiday excitement. Seniors recall how butter and sugar were boiled together until they reached that perfect hard crack stage, then poured onto pans and cooled into golden sheets. Families often sprinkled nuts or drizzled chocolate over the top, breaking it into jagged shards that looked like edible stained glass. The recipe itself had roots in English kitchens, but in America, it became a holiday favorite, passed down as a test of skill and patience. The bite was crisp and buttery, with a caramelized sweetness that lingered long after. Folks often said that toffee had some real crunch power because it wasn't just candy. It was a memory of Christmas gatherings, of kitchens alive with chatter, and of a tradition that turned simple ingredients into a festive masterpiece. Number 9. Penuche was the brown sugar darling of Christmas candy trays in the 1970s, especially in New England kitchens, where its story ran deep. Seniors recall how this fudge-like treat was made by simmering brown sugar, butter, and milk until it thickened into a creamy, caramel-colored block. Unlike chocolate fudge, Penuche carried a distinct molasses-like flavor from the brown sugar, giving it a taste that was richer and more old-fashioned. Families often cut it into squares, sometimes adding nuts for crunch, and passed it around at holiday gatherings as a symbol of homemade pride. The recipe itself had roots in Yankee tradition, a candy that spoke of thrift and resourcefulness, turning simple pantry staples into something unforgettable. Folks often said that Penuche had soul because it wasn't just candy. It was a memory of heritage, of kitchens alive with chatter, and of a flavor that carried the warmth of Christmas past. Number 10. Divinity was often called the angel candy of Christmas in the 1970s, a treat that felt almost heavenly in both look and taste. Seniors remember how egg whites were whipped into stiff peaks, then blended with hot sugar syrup until the mixture turned into a fluffy, cloud-like confection. The candy was spooned onto wax paper, sometimes dotted with pecans, and left to set into snowy mounds that looked like little halos on the holiday table. The recipe had roots in southern kitchens, but by the 70s, it spread across America as a symbol of festive elegance. The texture was airy yet chewy, the sweetness light but lasting, a flavor tied to stockings, church socials, and the pride of homemade traditions. Folks often said that Divinity was pure magic because it wasn't just candy, it was memory, a reminder of holidays when every bite carried joy, faith, and the sparkle of Christmas past. And that's the sweet finish to 10 forgotten Christmas candies from the 1970s that have disappeared. These weren't just sugar and butter. They were stories, traditions, and memories that seniors still hold close. Every bite carried laughter, heritage, and the sparkle of holidays past. Which candy brought back the strongest memory for you? Drop it in the comments because your story keeps this legacy alive. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so we can keep unwrapping history together.